Copenhagen, autumn 1943. A strange silence hung in the streets. Neighbors no longer greeted one another. Lights in windows went out earlier than usual. The air was cold, but it wasn't the sea breeze. It was the chill in people's eyes. Everyone knew something, but no one dared to speak. At night, small boats began to appear in the harbor. Fishermen claimed to go out to sea, yet they returned with empty nets in silent holds. It was as if the entire seaside town was preparing for a secret mission. Rumors spread. The Germans are moving. Against whom? No one said, but everyone understood. This time was different. Soldiers were everywhere, and patrols doubled in number. One evening, a doctor burst into his home, face pale with fear. "We don't have much time," he said. "Tonight they're coming for the Jews." The room fell into a deep silence. The word spread like lightning. Someone's friend, someone's teacher, someone's neighbor was Jewish. Warn them, hide them, help them escape. But how? And where? Then an idea came from the sea, to Sweden. Freedom lay on the other side. But between them, German patrols, mines, darkness, and death. No one knew it yet, but this single thought would change an entire nation overnight. Within hours, a small boat would head into the black waters, and one of Denmark's most mysterious stories would begin. Part 2. October 1st, 1943. Morning fog swallowed Copenhagen. The city's footsteps sounded quieter than ever. German vehicles rolled through the streets, and people feared even to peek from behind their curtains. Everyone felt it. Something had begun. That day, the German command circulated a secret order. The Danish Jews are to be arrested tonight. The command was precise. At 0100, doors would be knocked down, families caught in their sleep. Children, the elderly, the sick, no one spared. No one given time to run. But the plan leaked. A German diplomat, George Ferdinand Duckwitz, heard the order and refused to stay silent. He warned Danish officials, "They're coming tonight. If you don't act now, tomorrow will be too late." The news spread with lightning speed. Churches opened secret shelters. Doctors replaced Jewish names with false ones in hospital records. Neighbors whispered through open windows, "They're leaving tonight." But no one knew exactly where. Among fishermen, a plan formed, across the sea, to Sweden. Sweden was neutral and might grant asylum, but the sea was full of German patrols. Every harbor watched. 10 kilometers of water felt like a lifetime's distance. Still, hundreds gathered in the dark. Boats were repaired, fuel was hidden, and children were gently silenced with cloths so they wouldn't cry. On the shore, a woman looked at her husband. "If we don't see each other tomorrow, know that I went." That night, the wind carried more than cold. It carried a promise that would change history. The first boat had already pushed off, and the Germans were beginning to suspect. Midnight approached. No lights burned in the harbor. Fishing boats looked abandoned, yet the sea's scent felt different, thick with fear. One small boat held 8 souls, 2 children, an old woman, a young teacher, and 4 fishermen. A child whispered, "Father, I see a light." The father stayed silent. Everyone did. That light might be a German patrol. The fishermen knew. A single sound, a baby's cry, even a clink of metal could mean death. So they tied cloth around every object, muffled every breath. Thousands still waited ashore. Too few boats, too little time. All eyes stared toward the horizon, hoping Sweden's wind would show the way. But the Germans were out there too. Patrol engines echoed across the waves. Each time the sound drew near, everyone froze. Even their hearts seemed to stop. A patrol's light swept across the water. For a second, the sea glowed, then darkness again. The motor faded into the distance. Everyone exhaled at once. It was only the first night. Many still waited, and the Germans were now alert. The next nights would be harder and deadlier. By morning, Copenhagen was no longer the same. German patrols searched the docks, questioning every returning fisherman. "Who did you see last night?" they asked. "No one," came the calm replies. But they all knew exactly who they had seen. Hundreds of Jews had already vanished. The Germans realized they couldn't all be hiding in the city, but where were they? No one spoke, because Denmark had turned into an invisible army. Churches became sanctuaries. Hospitals were filled with fake patients. Teachers built hidden rooms behind classroom walls. Even some German officers quietly looked away. A priest wrote in his diary, "We do not pray for a miracle. We pray for our fear to remain silent." Every act was planned. Farmers smuggled fuel for boats. Doctors guided trucks carrying refugees. Everyone had a role, but no one knew the others' names. Yet time was running out. The Germans ordered, "Seal the coast, search every vessel, question everyone." The plan could collapse any moment. But that night, in a small basement in Copenhagen, 5 men gathered. They decided to unite the southern fishermen into one network. History would later call them the Shadow Army. That night, their decision would change thousands of lives, but someone would have to pay the price. The sea trembled, not from fear, but from resolve. The Shadow Army was in motion. Everyone knew their part. Who would knock? Who would carry the children? Who would start the motor? The plan was simple, to move hundreds across the sea in one night. Simple, but nearly impossible. Lists were drawn in churches, names marked ready, waiting, missing. Each time missing was written, the room fell silent. Still, no one stopped. Fishing boats sat like ghosts by the shore, but inside them, hidden life pulsed. Families huddled close, eyes shining in darkness. A fisherman's son asked, "Father, who are these people?" "People," he answered, "whom we are saving." But not everyone shared that mercy. German spies had infiltrated the harbors. Some boats were misdirected, others betrayed. One night near Gedser, a boat's motor failed. A patrol found them. By morning, their bodies washed ashore. Fear spread, but courage spread faster. Some wavered, most stayed silent, and sailed again. Because it was no longer about escape, it was about humanity. The Germans grew furious. The Copenhagen commander wrote, "The Jews are vanishing. The Danish government and people are complicit." Raids increased, doors were kicked in, but each time the homes were empty. It was as if the wind itself was one step ahead. That same wind now carried 40 boats into the sea, and it would become the most dangerous night of them all. That night, the wind shifted. The Baltic breathed, every wave whispering a secret. More than 40 boats slipped into the dark, filled with families and hope. On the shore, no one spoke. They just listened to the hum of motors fading into the cold. Everything went as planned, until a distant light appeared. A German patrol. A sharp beam sliced across the water. A fisherman cut his engine. A child stopped breathing. Only the soft slap of waves remained. The light lingered. 1 second, 2, 3. Then, slowly, it drifted away. Not everyone was that lucky. 3 boats were caught near Falster Island. Those aboard were arrested. Some never returned. The sea swallowed their stories. At dawn, a whisper spread. Some made it. Sweden took them in. No one believed it, until the captain returned, whispering, "They crossed. They're safe." Hope replaced fear. That night, some died, some lived, but one truth was clear. Even if the Germans controlled the sea, freedom had already crossed it. Mid-October, Copenhagen felt unnervingly calm. German officers marched the streets, but their eyes revealed something new: fear of losing control. The Danish people were silent, but not submissive. It was a collective, silent rebellion. Fishermen were now heroes. Every house, every port hid coded routes and secret signals. Between bread and fish, false papers and gold coins were concealed. In an old baron's mansion, a hidden radio room sent signals to Sweden. The Swedish government knew everything. Officially neutral, it quietly opened its borders. King Gustav himself gave the secret order: do not return any Dane caught at sea. It ignited a fire of hope in the Danish soul. This was no longer an escape, it was a moral stand. But the Germans tightened control, more patrols, more arrests. Some fishermen disappeared. No one spoke, because one person's silence could save hundreds. The sea kept moving. Each wave carried a prayer, a child's fear, a mother's hope. Yet everyone wondered, how much longer can this go on? November winds had come. The Baltic was wild and freezing, deadly, but also mercifully dark. Bad weather meant invisibility, perfect for escape or for death. The Germans now knew almost everything. They intercepted radio messages, questioned dock workers, and some boats never returned. Only shattered planks washed ashore. Still, the operation continued. It was no longer about saving Jews, it was about saving Denmark's conscience. One night in Esbjerg, fishermen gathered. Captain Sven Åge spread a map on the table. From here, it's 14 hours to Sweden, patrol zone in between. Our only chance, the fog. They set out. The motor hummed softly, as if the sea itself was holding its breath. Lights flickered on the horizon, patrols, gunboats, the moon's reflection. Suddenly, a German searchlight caught them. Women clutched their children. The motor went dead. The beam moved closer. And then, a miracle. Fog rolled in from nowhere, thick as smoke. The patrol lost direction. Within minutes, the Danes were moving again, toward freedom. At dawn, their engine died just as they reached Swedish waters. They had not just saved their lives, they had saved humanity's face. But it wasn't over. The Germans launched Operation Canal Hunt. And the next night, no one knew. Would the boat mean salvation or death? Everyone knew now. Whispers carried from street to street, harbor to harbor. Tonight, the last ones will go. The Germans grew ruthless. Patrols roamed day and night. All fishing boats were registered. All families watched. But it was too late to stop. If they surrendered now, humanity would lose. Families met in darkness, planning who would hide, who would flee. Children were taught to breathe quietly, to smile without sound, because one child's cry could doom an entire boat. Mid-December, the largest crossing yet. Over 200 people in one night. The sea was still, but the cold was deadly. Engines failed, sails froze. Some prayed instead of steering. 4 boats were captured. 2 were sunk. But in the silence came a message. 7 boats made it, all safe. The news froze the entire nation. Even Nazi officers realized this people could not be broken. They were fighting not with weapons, but with conscience. By the end of that winter, over 6,000 Jews had reached Sweden. Some perished in the icy waters, but most survived. They never returned, yet every wave on Denmark's coast still whispered, "Don't come back. We're still fighting." The war wasn't over, but hope was alive. May 1945. The sun rose over Copenhagen like it hadn't in years. German tanks were gone, replaced by cheers and flags waving from windows. Children laughed in the streets. But amid the joy, one question lingered. Will the ones who crossed the sea come back? Yes, many did. Thousands of Danish Jews returned from Sweden after the war. When they reached their homes, they saw something extraordinary. No Nazi seals on their doors, no looted furniture, no empty rooms. Their Danish neighbors had kept everything safe, even their pets. Not a single house was stolen. It was the quietest yet greatest victory of all. Out of 7,000 Jews in Denmark, 7,000 escaped. Only 472 were captured, most sent to Theresienstadt. And even there, the Danish Red Cross saved many. It was a miracle of compassion amid horror. Denmark had sent a message to the world. Humanity never loses if it learns when to be silent. Years later, an old fisherman said, "We weren't heroes. We just listened to our conscience. The sea showed us the way." Today, on that same coast, stands a small monument, a boat's wheel, old fishing nets, and a route etched toward Sweden. The inscription reads simply, From here, humanity passed. And perhaps that's why Denmark remains, the nation that saved almost all its Jews, not with weapons, but with kindness.
Subscribe for more.